Hello, I am Unwiltus back again for another 0 AD replay. Now I haven't had one for the last couple weeks. And today we are having Kizatom, I believe, against Skirmish Knight. I'm going to refer to them as red and blue, just to make things simple. And let's take a look at these opening strategies. This is a 1v1 Rust. No, I'm joking. There's no Rust here. And look at that. Building up that farmstead, hunting those chickens very early on. And look at that. An interesting 6 simultaneous women are being trained at once, which is, I find, very interesting. Which is definitely unconventional. And look at that. I believe this is the Iberian. Yes, it is. The Iberian, a special property of the Iberians is that they start with a nice wall to protect their towns, which is actually very useful, because it really does help to defend against infantry attacks to a large extent and cavalry attacks. So it really also means that raiding your early farms is going to be a lot more difficult to the opposing player. So this is definitely going to play into the strategy that the blue player is going to have to accomplish here. Now the blue player is continuing building up the first house so far, and let's see what is in the production queue. Some cavalrymen, perhaps, to acquire more delicious meat, or perhaps to do some scouting, or could this be the beginning of a rush? I don't think it is, but never say never, as a debatably wise man once said. And look at that. Getting those sheep and cutting them up, sending the meat to market. Some nice mutton for everyone to eat. More women being trained. Storehouse is busy, and look at that. We are beginning to see some houses. Now, the red player does have to work a bit with these walls, unless the red player wants to demolish them, which I don't think would be the best of ideas. The red player needs to work with these walls and make sure that any structures set up within them are going to fit, and I guess it does require some extent of planning. And of course, you have to worry about these rocks that are in the way as well, because they can definitely lead to some problems. And what is this? Some troops bunching up outside? I don't see them doing anything specifically. Could this be a scouting party of some sort? I see some troops over here, but these are hunting. I can see that here. And there you go. Looks like they were actually sent out to hunt. So they actually decided to finally hunt. And let's take a look at the production queue. More women for the blue player. A second house, and that is not a house, that is a farmstead being built up. I can see a strategy coming together here to some extent. And only 3 houses from the red player. And the red player has also begun to move far outside of the base in order to hunt. Well, I should call it the town, or anything. Anyway, let's take a look at their resources. Let's see who's closer here. It looks like the blue player is up on food. The red player is up on wood a little bit, but the difference isn't that large. Well, now it is to some extent. And the blue player has used some stone, probably in getting some units. Let's see. Maybe this skirmisher. Well, no, Do skirmishers use stone? I don't think they do. No, they don't. Let's see. Oh, I guess it wasn't in any units. I can't really see any units. Well, it could be on an upgrade for the storehouse. That's probably where it was used. Anyway, more houses are being built up by the blue player. Now up to 4 and a field. A second one coming up. The red player is also at 4 houses. Wait, 5. And is also getting 2 fields up. So currently we're seeing relatively parallel developments. Of course, the big advantage that the red player has is this fortification. So that definitely is going to get into play towards the late game. And look at that. Another farmstead. And another field. Meanwhile, the red player is doing some strategic reaching that I think is specifically to garner some of these berries. But in the process, the red player has put down some more houses. And it looks like an engagement may have begun. A small first contact. But it isn't leading to any major battle. Anyway, the blue player has advanced to the town phase quite early on. Well, is early really the proper thing to say here? But look at that. A barracks being built by the blue player. That is going to allow the blue player to produce more troops at the same time. In case the blue player needs to rapidly build up troops. In addition to that, another house is being produced. And would you look at that? Just on cue, the red player also is building a barracks. Very parallel here, the development. Although the red player hasn't advanced to the town phase yet. And how far is the red player from the town phase? Let's see. Actually, quite a ways, resource-wise, but at the rate that resources are being gathered, I don't think it'll take too long until the red player gets there. It could just be strategic reasons. Perhaps building up the economic base a bit first. That could be a possible reason for this. Anyway, another storehouse has been built, probably to gather the wood here. And look at that, an early attack by the red player. Moving in, trying to snipe off some of these women. They aren't taking too much damage, but let's see how the fight goes here. The Civic Center is firing off some shots, so the blue player is at a slight tactical advantage here. Or, well, now the red player has taken the field. And unfortunately for the blue player, only troops took shelter inside the Civic Center, and now the economic base is left to dry up here. And this also has the side effect of shutting down the blue player's economy for at least some time. Meanwhile, the red player seems to be moving off, perhaps retreating. The blue player is staying on watch in case the red player comes back for another shot. Let's take a look here. The barracks has been completed and is already being put to use. But what's that? Insufficient population capacity. Uh-oh, the red player really needs to fix that soon if the red player wants to get some troops up. And apparently it seems like the red player is now realizing this and is immediately doing some work to alleviate those issues. And as I mentioned earlier, if the blue player were to launch a similar attack against the red player as the red player had just launched against the blue player, then it would not be as effective due to the walls. Now, of course, that being said, there still is quite a bit of potential for damage here. It just isn't as much. And look at that, those trees are going down fast, and a defense tower is being built by the blue player, possibly to defend those working around here, and also the buildings as well, or just to generally stake out the territory. That always helps. And it looks like the red player is moving out some troops, but I wouldn't say that this is large enough for a raid force. Could this be perhaps just to get a hold of some meat? I don't know. Or could it be a scouting party? Or could it be that the red player... Oh, it is meat! Although I do have to say, going that far for it is a bit too extreme in my opinion. I think that's a little bit too far, unless the red player is trying to deny the blue player the meat. That could be a strategy here, although I do say, and I dare say, that it is a bit inefficient. But look at that, the blue player is sending over some women to build another storehouse. Any other special buildings up? Nothing out of the ordinary. Looks like the blue player is very invested in getting lots of wood, unlike the red player, who hasn't really been doing as much work in that regard. However, the red player is building more houses in order to satisfy the need for having a greater number of units. And I find it quite interesting. We don't usually see Iberian plays. That isn't something that we see too commonly in these replays, but I love the fact that we actually get to see one today. And look at that. Probably out for the meat. Or sudden change of direction. Perhaps not. Perhaps doing some exploration. Let's check blue vision. Yes, I see what it is. Yep, it is some scouting, as the blue player has not yet discovered the red player's base. And look at that.
Yeah, see?
Yep. The big force, and there it is, the encounter.
Yeah,
quite a bit of damage received. The blue player seems to have realized what is going on here. Let's see if we can follow the player.
Yeah, see? Yeah, see?
Seems like
Yeah, see?
the blue player is busy setting up defenses
Yeah, see? Yeah, see?
and outposts.
Yeah, see? Yeah, see? Yeah, see?
And
Yeah, see? Yeah, see?
there it is. Now the
Yeah,
blue
see?
player
Yeah, see?
is
Yeah, see?
controlling the troops, trying
Yeah, see?
to
Yeah, see?
set up these defenses
Yeah, see?
fast, but it doesn't seem like it is going to be fast enough. Well, not exactly defenses. Let's be honest. Outposts aren't the most defensive structures in this game. And look at that, the red player moves in once again, forcing the blue player to pull all the women off the fields. And now the red player is capturing the blue player's barracks. Let's take a look. Any strange buildings? Nope. Nothing unusual. Just checking. And look at that. The barracks are captured and garrisoned. Now the red player has a foothold in this region and is now producing some swordsmen, which of course are interesting if I do say so. Look at that. Killing the women as they are building these towers. Troops come out. The building is garrisoned. This building is going to become a nuisance to the red player if the red player chooses to stay in this area. And look at that, the red player has tracked down to some extent the blue player's remaining forces that are outside. And it looks like the red player is doing this a bit methodically, systematically, not rushing in for the easy kill. But that strategy has allowed the blue player to build up another defense tower, as the red player, instead of trying to destroy the blue player's lands, is instead trying to dominate them. And here we see women trying to escape the slaughter, but it is not working. They're being shot down. Meanwhile, the red player has to worry about receiving fire. A lot of these troops are weakened. But having this barracks right here allows the red player to send reinforcements from right here, which of course is very dangerous for the blue player. However, the blue player is continuing to set up towers to defend. And this strategy seems to be somewhat effective, as it is reining in the extent of the red player's onslaught to some extent. And look at that, now they're fighting in the field. Looks like the blue player has a lot of full health troops here against the red player's weakened invaders, who are going down relatively fast in the face of such an onslaught. But the red player is not too discouraged by these towers and continues to move in. However, it does seem like it is costing the red player. And look at that, the red player has pulled together some reinforcements. Now both of these towers are firing at the barracks. The red player continues to receive fire from the towers, while still focusing on those working in the field, trying to focus on the economy. However, the blue player's towers are wearing down the red player. The troops are being worn down. Meanwhile, lots of houses have been built around this barracks. Other than that, the red player is rallying. And the blue player continues to build up defenses. And look at that, the red player is working toward a town face. So let's actually take a look at the resources for a moment. Let's not follow player. And looks like the blue player has saved up some food and quite a bit more wood, and has more stone and metal at the time. But the red player does seem to have more troops. But it looks like the blue player is fighting back against the red player. However, the blue player is forced to continue to defend against these continual attacks. Meanwhile, the red player ignores the defenses and just aims to hurt the economy. The blue player is slowly gathering together, forced to counterattack the red player. And look at that, pulling back together outside again. And now the blue player is trying to make gains in taking over, or taking back the barracks. Meanwhile, the red player comes to shoot the blue player soldiers in the back. But the blue player does have the numbers advantage here. So the red player really, if the red player wants to continue this attack, the red player needs to marshal some troops together, gather together some forces in order to launch an attack. And look at that, a second barracks by the blue player, trying to replace the first one. And look at all these towers. That's a lot of firepower if I ever saw any. And the blue player is building a market. Meanwhile, the red player is gathering together some forces, but will it be enough? The red player is also building a market. As expected, they both are following a similar economic model. Or a build order, as some might say. Look at that, more barracks. The red player coming out to shoot the blue player in the back. But I think it is a good time to stop right here. So let me just pause the game here. And so far, I'm seeing some pretty interesting plays. The red player tried to take a piece of the blue player's territory and use that as a base to continue attacks. However, the blue player reacted by building quite a few towers, which, although the red player continued to ignore the blue player's defenses and attack the civilians directly, these towers did indeed whittle down the red player's attacking forces significantly, and eventually allowed the blue player to regain at least some territorial dominance in this region, although the red player has not been fully expunged from the land yet. So I'm very excited to see what happens next time. So on that note, I thank you all for watching. Please do leave some comments in the comments section below. And I will be seeing you all next time on Awiltus over and out.